Well, it is a victory Monday, Cody, as we are coming off the Arkansas win at home. So that's something that we can be certainly be pumped about, and certainly be pumped about a big Thanksgiving week here on Orange Bloods Live, and of course, culminating on Friday with that home game, season-ending rivalry week with Texas A&M. It's going to be a big one, and as I just got done wrapping up the offensive film study, something kind of really, I guess something that Coach Sark said today at his press conference as I was doing my write up and I was doing the film review, it kind of stuck with me, and it began to make more and more sense the more and more I thought about it. And as I kind of looked at the data from this season and compared it to previous seasons, we're going to talk about that right now. First, though, I want to thank the Man Eye Institute, our great presenting sponsor. See life better at the Man Eye Institute. You can give them a phone call today, 1-844-WOW-2020, 844-WOW-2020, the Man Eye Institute, whether it's their next level LASIK, whether it's for glasses, whether it's for contacts, whether it's for cataracts, astigmatism, anything for your vision, the Man Eye Institute is going to be able to help you, and they're going to be able to help you in cutting edge ways, new age ways, next level ways, like next level LASIK. So make sure and give them a call. They are our presenting sponsor. They're the reason that we can do the show. So the Man Eye Institute, See Life Better, 1-844-WOW-2020. And of course, our seasoning blend, the Alpha Seasoning. Make sure and get it today for the holidays, alphaseasoning.com. It is our elite spice blend. You can also get it at Hudson's Meat Market on South Congress in Austin, also Hudson's Meat Market in Marble Falls, and of course, at Texas Beef Traders, where you always get 10% off whenever you mention Orange Bloods. All right, Cody. So Sark today at the press conference, he was asked by, I forgot who asked him, but he was asked if, do you feel like with the run game struggles, and look, the run game has struggled, and by now we are at a point in the season where the team is what the team is. It's not going to change. Nothing else is there's not going to be anything that's a fundamental shift. When Texas plays good defenses, they're going to struggle to run the football with this offensive line and with these running backs. And it is what it is. I think that running backs who could create a little bit better on their own could get things done behind this offensive line. I don't think that Texas has a running back right now who is particularly adept at creating on his own. And if you can't create on your own behind, a middling offensive line that started out bad, that's gotten incrementally a little bit better, you're going to have trouble, right? And somebody asked Sark, coming into this game at home versus A&M, big rivalry spot, if the run game struggles, like, what do you do to stay patient with the run game? Something along these lines. Is it something that you need to stick with, stay patient with this stuff? Sark just kind of looks at him. He's like, no. It's like,
yeah,
he said, like, we got to do what we need to do to win the football game. And if something's not working, it was the same thing I was thinking. I was like, dude, if you stay patient to this run game versus A&M and versus that defense, you could look up and, like, your chances to try and win the football game are done. I was looking at some data, and I have some data that I don't really know what to make of. I'm not sure. It's a whole correlation causation thing, and it's a little bit complicated to parse out. But first, I just like to hear from you. What did you think about the run game in this last one? What are your general thoughts? Is we're almost able to now do a post-mortem on what the regular season has looked like. What are you expecting versus A&M? And what did you think about Sark saying it's like, no, man, like, look, if we're running the ball well, we'll run the football. If we're throwing the ball well, we'll throw the football. He's like, if we're doing both well, that's a real good sign. Let's cross our fingers and hope that's the case, right? But he's like, no, this isn't the type of spot where you're going to be married to one thing and stubborn to one thing. And I was personally encouraged to hear that.
Well, I think the big thing is the fact that it's November 24th and it's, what are we, 11 weeks in now? It's like pretty odd. I mean, it's pretty
11 games,
11 games, 13 weeks. Pretty obvious kind of what you can and what you can't do. And yeah, a year ago, I think there was theory, I think, coming down the stretch that, like, you hit the Kentucky game, you hit the Florida game last year, the A&M game, Wisner rushes for 186 yards. You're thinking in the back of your head, like, yeah, we can get this thing warmed up by the end of the year where, Wisner might be hitting on all cylinders like he did at the end of last year. That hasn't quite happened. Now, they had a good drive or two drives against Georgia, showed that they could run the football. I thought they did at times against Arkansas, but it's pretty clear what this offense is best at. It's just best at the football being in Arch Manning's hand. And, I think the running backs are fine. I don't think they're above average. I think they might be right at average for the SEC, for the Power Four. Now, I think if you put a Wisner or a Baxter and, some of these like a Virginia or, Virginia Tech or, even like a Missouri, I think they'd be okay. But I think, there's a certain point in the season to which we usually talk about, like in the fantasy circle, like, it's a small sample size. This guy played 1 week or 2 weeks, and you're like, can Michael Wilson keep this thing up for the Cardinals? He's only it's been 2 weeks in this alpha role. What happens? It's like it's a small sample size, but for this Texas run game, the whole season's pretty much your sample size. And if you lose the A&M, I mean, your season's
we have the sample.
Done.
It's there, except for Texas A&M.
You don't have room to sit here and be like, hey man, we're gonna keep on throwing the paint at the wall and just see if it just turns into art. It's like, that's not, no, you need to understand what you can do, what you can't do. And when you have 18 completions in a football game against Arkansas for almost 400 yards, and it's your most explosive output of the season from a super explosive plays perspective, you kind of found it in a certain way. Like, we've been talking about Arch the last month, really since that Oklahoma game. Like, every game he's taken steps forward, right? Every game he's gotten better and better in different ways and different things. And it certainly clicked last weekend. And it's like, am I going to tell myself, hey man, we're going to play this A&M game to a 17-7 score like we did last year? Because, we rushed for 190 yards last year, and we need to have a game this year where a running back rushes for 100 yards. No, we figured out we can't do that. So let's not try and push that square peg into a round hole. It ain't gonna freaking fit. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I said in my write-up from the column, I said the exact same thing. I said, like, it's encouraging to hear that Sark's not going to round peg square hole this deal.
Yeah,
it's like so I used the exact same expression. It's just it couldn't be any more clear to me. And I got to thinking, if Derek Cooper can't come in and be like an immediate I think he can come in and be an immediate freshman impact player. But if they don't think he can, or they don't trust a freshman to do it, or there's something inherent where they're like, no, we're not going to let him do it, he's a freshman, which I don't think will be the case, because they're paying him a lot of money. And we've gotten the word from behind the scenes that guys who are getting paid a lot of money are going to have to come in and play now. There's going to be no more of this, Jamie French gets to play 5 snaps this season. It's just, it's not going to happen again. So I think Cooper will come in and be the starter. Is that really too weird to say? I think he comes in and he's the starter. And if he's not, what they need to do is they just need to go to, like, I don't watch enough like Sunbelt football or stuff like that to really know, but I'm sure there's some kind of James Madison running back or something out there that's a sophomore that's going for 1,300 yards this season that you can pick off, just like Missouri did last year with Hardy. You know what I mean? Or you bring in a guy like, dude, I was watching Mike Washington last week for Arkansas, and I was thinking to myself, dude, Texas could use that guy. Like, there are these guys, Jaden Baugh. You look at these players and you're like, man, if Texas had a runner like that, somebody who had some semblance of just being able to create some on his own and not having to have it be like 2024 where you're running behind a top 2 offensive line in the whole game of football to be able to get this done. This is not that same offensive line. It's going to be a while before things coalesce in that same way, with that same 2022 class that all came up together, and they've had these other kind of parts and pieces around them that were like around these truly elite studs. And it was just it was a killer group. It was a really good group. They don't have that right now. Is the offensive line this year good? No, it's not good. Is it as bad as everybody thinks it is? I don't think it's as bad right now. This iteration of it is not as bad as people all think it is in the national media. Just like next year, whenever people that tuned out on Texas after the Ohio State game, right, and they tune back in next year for the home opener, they're going to see they're not going to believe what they see out of Arch Manning. They're going to say, this is just so like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. He must have gotten good over the course of the last season, right? But it's like it's a situation where the reason why the public thinks that the offensive line is so bad is because they were in big spots at certain times, and they were miserable, right? Mm-hmm. They've been very, very bad. So clearly this is not all the running backs, But as the offensive line's gotten a little bit better and they've got some more continuity, you would have liked to see something begin to happen with these running backs, and it just hasn't. Texas can't run the football. So I began thinking, I'm like, so I was doing the personnel grouping, the personnel frequency groupings this week, and I was just looking at it. I go, dude, if you look at Texas's 3 losses, Ohio State, Florida, and Georgia, there is one trend that you can't over. It's like it's as simple as can be. I can't believe I've never noticed it before today, but those were the only 3 games where they were in 11 personnel over 70% of the time. So, I mean, some of these other games versus like Sam Houston State, they're like 30% of the time they're in 11. Usually they've been this year at like a 58% rate, right? In these games where they've elevated up to 72.88%, 71.43%, and 73.13%, those were in their 3 losses, right? And so I got to thinking, okay, so if Texas in this game versus the Aggies, if they do get into a spot where they're going to be doing this stuff where they get the wide receivers in bunch sets over to Arch's right, and they throw it to Wingo, and they let DeAndre Moore and Mosley or Livingston go out and get their stock blocks on, or if they're motioning if they're motioning Niblet across and like on an orbit, and they kind of do the pump fake to him, and then you get Wingo on the out and up, and you get those sort of plays off of these setups that are extensions of the run, right? Which is what I think that's what the offense sort of is right now. Is get the ball in the hands of Wingo, get it in the hands of Mosley, let them do things with it after catch. And that's not to leave out Livingston. I think that he's a big part of the offense, but he's more the downfield threat than he is get the ball in his hands behind the line of scrimmage and see what he can go do. Mm-hmm. Right. But it's like, if you're going to be getting those guys involved in those ways, it's going to take playing a lot of 11 personnel. It's going to take playing a lot. And so I began thinking, I'm like, well, is this correlation? Is this causation? Because they lose all the games that they go to super heavy 11, right? But I think it's different because in those games, they were in their they got into like, oh crap mode, and they didn't know what to do, and they had to abandon the run, and they go to 11, and that's that. I think it can be different versus the Aggies as long as you go in there with the intention that this is how we're going to do it. We're going to play a lot of 11 personnel, but it's not going to be just because we are being reactive. We're going to go in there. We're going to be intentional in doing this right from the very beginning. So I don't necessarily think, I was thinking to myself, if they do go to this spot, and they're in more 12, and I say more 12 because I think that you traditionally probably run more out of 12 personnel. It's a heavier personnel grouping. You have 2 tight ends in, right? I got to thinking, I think you can get away with it and play with that heavy 11 personnel as long as you go in there with that intention, as opposed to being reactive and just having to resort to it.
Do you think that's going to be Jack? Do you think Jack Endries will be the guy, or do you think they'll still work in like a Townsend and a Washington?
Have you heard anything about Jordan Washington being hurt?
I haven't.
Neither have I.
So
he's been playing between 25 and 50% of snaps basically all season, and then just shows up with a stone goose egg in this game as far as.
Endries had he was second on the team in targets, and he had his highest target share of the season.
Yeah, but that doesn't account for the fact that like Nick Townsend played more than ever this last game. Spencer Shannon had been playing way behind Washington, and he got in a ton in this game too. I was just wondering what happened with Washington.
Maybe he was banged up.
I mean, he wasn't on the injury report last week. I don't remember him getting banged up.
Well, maybe it was a Jalen Gilbo situation where it was just, they just kind of were like, you know what? We're tired of seeing you, drop passes or, things like this. That could be the angle. But my thing going off of your 11-12 personnel conversation is, one of the, they've had these bunches out there when they hit Wingo on these screens, and obviously he's getting his targets and stuff, but I don't think it was the Arkansas. I think it was the Georgia game when they opened up, and it was a Jack Endries motion out of the kind of the H-back spot, or maybe he was in line. I can't remember exactly, but I think it was a motion out of in line maybe. And I think he was an H-back. Anyway, the point is
Oh,
he
he
was
would have been an
motioning
H-back
out.
if he would have motioned out. He would have had to been an H-back.
Yeah, that's kind of why I said I think that's what it was. Anyways, the point is, I don't think they've done that every time. And I wonder if they work that off of there. I know Sark has always had thing that's always been in the back of my brain is how Sark always says, like, you know, the offense is going to run as good as it is. Like when you can get the tight end involved, the tight end is so important. Is, you know, equally or not quite equally as, but one of the important things like running the football, like right having a run game and then having a tight end that you can depend on. These things work together in this offense being successful. And we see a game this week where, you know, Andrews has his season high in targets and you don't catch them all, but maybe he's taking a step forward in the offense and he gets more opportunities. And I wonder if there's something there in that. And then I just kept thinking of that against Georgia, that kind of bubble out motion before Wingo gets that pass. And I just keep thinking of like, when are they going to work off of that Wingo screen? When are they going to go over the top? Or will they never?
Well, they did on the they did on the Niblet one, but
But
they
I'm
did.
talking about opening the game. Like you're
No,
not what? Is this 5
you can't
games?
do it now, man. It's like the total mid IQ thing. You got
But
to
that
just
was what it was 2 weeks ago, right? This is what now 4 or 5 weeks in a row.
no. Well, hey, dude, how about this? I know the exact perfect thing to do. The easiest thing to do. It scores a touchdown every time, right? Just have the Parker Livingston roommate to roommate connection with a dot in the end zone to Arch Manning.